Hey everyone, it's Darren. Welcome. Uh, Two really simple but very closely related functions this time. It's the trim and the clean function. Uh, you use them on text strings, and they basically just get rid of all the garbage in your text string, which may make you wonder, why do I have garbage in my text string? And the answer is because you probably got your text from somewhere else. Normally, what happens is somebody will send you an Excel file. Somebody will give you something out of a reporting system. A client gives you a file that you needed. Whatever. Somehow you get these files into you, and you have to work with them. And sometimes the text is great, and usually the text has some problems with it. There's extra spaces, there's non-printable characters, there's all kinds of garbage sometimes. Before you can really work with them, you have to clean them up. And the len and the clean functions, or excuse me, the trim and the clean functions really help you to do that. We're going to use the len function here actually to look at what we're doing. If you want more information on len, down in the description, there's a link. Just drop down there. You get all the information on it. We're not going to talk much about it. We're just going to use it today. So if we look at the file here, uh, in A1, we have a text cell. And if we look at how long this is, we see it's 4 characters long. Perfect. Looks 4 characters long to me, right? Uh, so that one's fine. A2, though, has some extra spaces at the beginning. Now, if we try to work with that and we try to combine it into other text, it's going to look funny. Uh, and we can actually see how long this is. If we do len A2, we can see there's 3 extra spaces here at the beginning. Uh, So what we want to do is fix that. And the way we're going to fix it is we're going to use the trim function. So we're going to do trim A2, which we can see got rid of those spaces. And now if we do len on that, uh, len on C2, we can see it's 4. Uh, Now the good news is we don't actually have to do this with an intermediate cell. You can, and there are some really good reasons for using intermediate columns, intermediate pages even. Um, Clean and trim, you're going to use so often, you'll probably just embed that. So instead of doing it this way, what you're most likely to do is actually just use this inside of your other function. So we can just combine this and do len trim A2, which gives us 4. And you see that one's 1 now because it's referring to the length of 4. Well, let's get rid of that because that'll just confuse things. Okay, so A3 looks good, right? Well, let's check its length. Like, oh, A3 is 8 characters long. Okay, that's because I put a bunch of spaces at the end of this one. Just looking at it, you can't see those spaces. So that's one of those places where you get in trouble if you set it up to automate the process and you're automate adding this string and this string together, and you don't know that you've got a bunch of extra spaces at the end, and then you wind up with some really ugly looking text. And you don't want to do that. So we're going to copy this down. And remember, this is just running the trim function. So it's running trim across A3 and then giving the length. You could concatenate trim A3, whatever. Uh, this is an example where it never hurts to use trim. I use it a lot. Anytime I'm using text, even if I'm the one that cut the text up with text parsing, I'm more likely to add the trim function. And then if I concatenate a couple later, I'll probably stick the trim function in again. It's fast, it's easy, it doesn't really slow down your computer, it doesn't take up much disk space. There's really no good reason to not use it. Uh, so if we look at a couple of other examples here of what trim and clean do, if we have more text, okay, well, more text, more is 4, text is 4, the space in the middle, 9 characters, perfect. Now if I wanted to run the trim function on this, it's still 9 characters. Uh, it didn't get rid of any characters at the beginning, didn't get rid of any characters in the middle, and it left the one space in the middle, which is what we wanted to do. And we can verify that if we want to, if we just do equals trim of A4. And we still have more text. Well, what about A5? A5 is getting a little messier. We can see right away there's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of extra spaces at the beginning, and a bunch of extra spaces in the middle. So if we just ask it for its length, that's 25 characters long. That's ridiculous, and it shouldn't be. Well, what if we clean this up? Oh, sorry. What if we clean this up and we do that? They got rid of all the spaces at the beginning and the end and everything, and we can actually verify everything's nice and clean here. And that's all cleaned up. Now, so far we've just been using trim, and I told you this is about trim and clean. Clean is different from trim. Clean actually does a lot more. Well, it does a lot different, not necessarily more. A lot of times you'll end up using the two functions together. Uh, if you get your data out of an old mainframe system, especially, sometimes from some other systems, if you are, if it's not really exporting exactly, but you're kind of working around to grab data kind of in from the side of some other programs occasionally, you'll get what are called non-printable characters. These are ASCII characters less than 32. They are useful for some things. They're not useful when working with text strings at all, and they really get in the way. These are things like carriage returns and page form feeds and tabs and all that stuff, and you really just don't want them. So I happen to know that A6 has a bunch of those. So let's look at what happens if we do len of A6. So we'll copy that down. That's 35 characters long. Okay, well, let's try using trim on it here. And trim says it's still 22 characters long. That's not 22 characters long. That should be what, 6, 4, 4 is 14, should be 16 characters long. Um, and if we do trim on it, we see we get that, but we've still got some other stuff in there. And so let's go ahead and just jump over here and we'll do equals len of D6, which is still 22 characters. It's just not right because we can see it should be 6 plus 4 is 14, and the two spaces is 16. So what's going on is that if we look at the original text here, I've embedded a bunch of extra garbage in there that we don't want. And you can't see it on the screen. That's why it's called non-printable characters, but it's still there. And if you try to output this, it may screw up printers. It could do all kinds of weird things. So what you don't want to do is you just want to clean this up. And the way we do that is we actually just use the clean function here. So if we do clean equal clean of A6, it looks pretty similar, except now you see that the length of that is now 29. And after running trim on it, it's down to 16. That's because we took out 6 characters. And that's exactly what we wanted. It looks the same. In fact, if we copy this over here, it looks exactly the same, but the length is shorter because we got rid of all those non-printables. So that's when you use clean. Um, how often do you need to use clean? Once. Uh, you can use it over and over. You can use as much as you want, but you really only need to use it once on a piece of data. Uh, Usually it's the data you're working with. Like I said, you're getting it from someplace else. It's coming into your Excel file. You put it into your Excel file, you run clean on it one time, and then you do all your other processing from that cleaned string. So you don't have to keep running clean, 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 clean. Trim, on the other hand, like I said, it doesn't hurt to run clean over and over and over every time. and it can actually get rid of problems. If you have a text string, so if I had this one here, more text, and if I parse that into two separate strings, chances are that space is going to be either at the end of one of the strings or at the beginning of the other string. And which one is it on? Well, yeah, it's hard telling. You can figure it out if you want, but it's easier just to run trim on both, and then you don't care where it goes. You don't have to worry about it. Uh, so what I recommend is run the clean function one time, run the trim function pretty much every time anytime you're changing the string around. So that's it for trim and for clean. If you learn anything from the video, if you're enjoying the channel, please hit the like button, hit subscribe so you can see when new videos come out. And thanks for stopping by.